To answer the questions that are probably in your head right now, yes, I am a Romney. And yes, I voted for Barack Obama. But that is not the entire purpose of this video. I just figured I'd put that out there to get your attention, which, if you're watching this now, proves that it worked. Now, this is the first major presidential election that I've actually gotten to vote in, so this is going to be a video more about my overall experience throughout this entire election year, so I will try to keep the jump cuts to a minimum. Yes, that was a bit of a cheap gag, but I couldn't help it. So, this has just been a very exhausting year for a lot of us. I mean, I live in Utah, and, well, we're not a battleground state, but we had our own fair share of political exhaustion, particularly in the case of seeing constant ads for Jim Matheson and Mia Love. A lot of people were getting really annoyed with that here in Utah because there was just so flippin' many of them, so much mudslinging back and forth, it was insane. And I'm sure that that was the case for most people in battleground states, where you see constant ads for both Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, lots of mudslinging back and forth. That's just how you know that it's an election year, when you see mostly mudslinging on your television. And so part of that was why it was so hard to really decide who to vote for most of it. Mostly because there was really no lesser of two evils in this case. Both parties were equally messed up and were equally at fault for the reason the country's in the shape it's in right now. I mean, Democrats try to blame Republicans, Republicans try to blame Democrats. You guys are both idiots, you guys are both at faults. That's pretty much my big thing here. Now, the biggest thing that helped me decide was actually the website called isidewith.com. It's a very simple site. You fill out this questionnaire, and then it matches your responses to the candidates running. Now, oddly enough, the candidate I got matched to was the Libertarian candidate, but as anybody who's seen any episode of The Simpsons, or really anybody with a brain, can tell you, voting for a third-party candidate is essentially throwing your vote away. I mean, in a battleground state, you may make a bit of an impact, but if you live in, well, Utah, where it's guaranteed to be a red state every single election year, you're throwing your vote away. And so, even though some of the third-party candidates may have had my attention, like Rocky Anderson, it was just a case of, yeah, it's not gonna matter, so I may as well at least vote in the direction that will keep Mitt Romney out of office. I mean, Mitt Romney, I agree with him on certain things, and he does have some pretty good stuff that he talked about, but the Republican Party, it's particularly the actions of the party, which is why I did not vote for Mitt Romney. And it's the same case with Barack Obama. I agree with some of the stuff he's mentioned, and there's also some other stuff that the Democratic Party has done that isn't the smartest thing in history. But then again, this is nothing really new. This is the same thing that happened back when Obama was first elected. The only reason people really voted for him, though, was to essentially vote for the first black president, which is something that was really, really annoying back then. But I was too busy being 17, 18, no, 17. I was too busy being 17 at the time to really focus on that because I couldn't vote back then. And so just the overall experience, well, one, I don't really watch a lot of TV in general because there's just nothing really good on anymore. I mean, there's not a lot of quality programming that I'm really willing to be invested in. The only shows I really watch regularly enough were reruns of Criminal Minds and MASH. That was pretty much it. But a lot of the political ads I did see was mostly whenever I would watch the news, and it was either usually 2 Mia Love ads back-to-back, or 2 Jim Matheson ads back-to-back, or 2 smear campaign ads against Mia Love back-to-back, or 2 smear campaigns against Jim Matheson back-to-back. So, naturally, it was a very, very frustrating thing for many of us who aren't one way or another. And that's part of the reason why voter turnouts tend to dip a little bit, because it's so confusing, and voting itself, I mean, you go into the polling place, you give them the ID, you're given the card, you go into the machine, you put the card in the machine, and the ones that you know the immediate choices of for are, well, the first ones you see, like president, governor, and, yeah, president, governor, senator, representative, congressman. Those are the first ones you see. But then the other stuff that you were expected to vote on is also kind of weird, because you're just like, county mayor, state auditor, who the heck are these positions and how come I've never heard of them? And so that was one overwhelming thing. The only other thing that was easy to vote on was the actual, like, propositions and bond stuff, like the issuance of bonds, because those ones are clearly outlined what you're actually voting for. Now, presidential races and congressional races and governor races are usually the highly publicized. In the case of the president and congressional races, because those ones are going to DC, and so the stakes are a tad higher in the eyes of the media. But really, it's the local elections that you should be focusing on, like who is the governor of your state, who is the mayor of your county, who's the mayor of your city, and like who are your state representatives. Those are the ones that really matter, because those are the ones that you see the effects immediately. You see the immediate effects firsthand. And so, if your vote may not matter in the case of the presidential election, your vote does matter in the case of your local election. And even if you're against a lot of the main ideologies of your region, like in my case, I'm more of a moderate, leaning to the left, whereas Utah is a very Republican state, those votes still matter, especially in the case of your local government, because if you don't vote or have any say in your local government, then those opinions aren't kept in mind. And so that's just a simple case of why voting is important. Now, I know most of the polls have closed by the time you're watching this, but this is just kind of a case of where I'm just kind of saying, these are my thoughts on the whole process, and that's pretty much that. So overall, this election year, it's been hectic for all of us. I'm glad that it's over, because it means I'll stop hearing a bunch of mudslinging and pandering back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until my brains just ooze out of my ears. But yeah, given that this is one of the first major presidential election that I got to vote in, well, it was pretty hectic, especially since the face of the landscape has changed. Main reason why the face of the landscape has changed? The internet. We're no longer limited to just getting information through the TV or through the newspapers anymore, or through televised debates. We have the internet now. We can actually go and research these topics and do our own fact-checking, which is really why I like isidewith.com, because the fact-checking has essentially been done for you. You just given your personal responses to the key topics, like how do you feel about immigration? Should gays be allowed to be married? What are your thoughts on abortion? What are your thoughts on the economy? What are your thoughts on foreign policy? Stuff like that, sites like isidewith.org really make it a lot easier. Now, I'm not able to actually donate money to them because I'm a poor full-time college student, so I'm doing the next best thing, raising awareness about the site. Although the election year is over, it's still a very good site, especially if you're someone like me who doesn't watch a lot of TV and is essentially trying to be apathetic as possible, mostly due to confusion. It's been crazy, it's been hectic, I've nearly gone bald trying to think of ways to really understand it or try to simplify everything to a way that someone like me, a younger voter, could understand. And I'm mostly glad that it's over, and I'm glad that I voted. And in the case of voting, it's an important duty. And to address all the conspiracy theorists who say that voting doesn't matter because there's some stupid, secret, powerful figurehead puppetry BS going on, here's my rebuttal. Chances are those conspiracy theories were actually released by the government themselves so that they keep you distracted, and that way you don't vote so that they can stay in power. To put it bluntly, the very fact that you're not voting because you think that Big Brother is in charge is just giving Big Brother more power. It's something that's been explored in fiction before, where people release conspiracy theories in order to get people distracted from actually finding out the real facilities. I mean, most recent example, Looney Tunes Back in Action. The whole story in that is that they released the name of Area 51 in order to send people on a wild goose chase while they actually did the work at another area. Same theory applies here. So yeah, this video was just kind of a rant vloggy thingy for, well, various things like promoting isidewith.com, as well as doing the whole DFTVA thing, which I couldn't do because, well, daylight savings is a bit of a pain, and it's so dark outside that even with this camera, using the flash, I would not be able to get a good enough picture. That, and I voted in the morning and didn't have my camera with me. So yeah, that's just my general thought on the election year, my general rants, as well as just my general rebuttals to all conspiracy theorists everywhere. I'm not going to close out with any real outro thing because, well, this isn't an actual episode of any of the stuff I actually do. So, yeah, agree, disagree, post in the comments, keep it clean, and, well, we'll find out soon enough who's in charge, who will be leading the country for the next 4 years.